Our class today is Coaching for HR, Well-Being, Skills, and Career Growth. So I'm going to kick it off and get us started, and then I'm going to hand it off to my other colleagues. Each section is 30 minutes, and please feel free to ask questions. We do have the chat being monitored, so if you have any questions in the chat, we'll definitely address them. So our shared agreement as we work together and according to ICF guidelines, confidentiality is key. So everything we share stays within the group. Although we are recording, we will make sure that everyone's comfortable with where we share that recording. ICF Code of Ethics is something we always follow. It's the basis for our work together. We create a respectful and trusting environment, meaning that we agree to communicate respectfully and kindly, respect each other's pace and communication style. We agree to share personal experiences or ask questions instead of giving advice. That's what coaches do. And we avoid judgment and criticism. For Zoom etiquette, please use the raise hand feature if you have any questions, or again, feel free to communicate in the chat. Everyone in agreement? Excellent. Thank you. So here we are today. This is the three of us, and we'll tell you a little bit about each of us as we begin to present. But first, our agenda. Part one, we're going to talk about well-being for HR professionals through coaching, which involves making space for the unique demands that HR professionals carry. We're going to talk about using a coaching mindset to stay grounded, clear, and effective when we're under pressure as HR professionals. We know about that. And we're choosing small, realistic practices that support well-being in the long run. Part two and part three will be my colleagues, Sarah and Elena, and they'll fill you in on details after part one. So moving ahead into part one, well-being for HR. This is me and just a little bit about my background. I'm not going to go over all the details. Please feel free to connect with me. I have a slide on connecting with me, but my focus is on leadership development, coaching for leaders, communication culture, accountability, and engagement. I'm an ICF credentialed coach with my ACC, and I've been pardon me, president of the ATD South Florida chapter for 2 terms. I'm not currently president, by the way. I have a life again. Although I'm director of networking, which is always fun. So in my section, we're going to learn why HR well-being matters. We all know it does. We're going to explore coaching practices that protect our energy, conduct a practical coaching exercise, reflect and discuss takeaways throughout our day today, our 90 minutes, that is. So I want to start with this. What is one powerful question you wish more people asked you at work? Please feel free to put it in the chat, or even if you'd like to come off mute and share. As an HR professional, one powerful question you wish more people asked. And Sarah or Elena, let me know if there's anything in the chat, please.
Not yet.
Anything? I see people typing. Ah,
How can we help you be the best? And what is the most important for you to accomplish?
nice. Excellent open-ended coaching questions. So you're already on a roll thinking about how do you put the focus on the team member when you're coaching. Great ideas, everyone, and thank you for sharing. And please feel free to keep sharing those important coaching questions. There's many questions that we can ask to learn about team members and well-being. And most important thing is to consider yourself at the same time. So thinking about this, when was the last time you checked in on your own well-being at work, not just as an HR professional, but as a person? So this is something I want you to reflect on and think about as HR professionals. We're so focused on the well-being of our employees. Do we think about our own well-being? Because the reality is, many HR professionals support others before they support themselves. They stay regulated so that others can express their own emotions. But we, as HR professionals, are staying regulated. Sometimes we carry issues home, even though we don't mean to. And we normalize high emotional load as part of the job. We think that's okay. So, show of hands, how many of you can relate to any of these?
Here is we see raise hand, Sarah.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'm seeing Sergio hardly ever from checking in on ourselves. So, as we continue to share this information, this is an awareness for you to think about how important you are. You can't support others if you're not supporting yourself and looking after yourself. Sergio, I see your hand up. Is your hand up as, yeah, just one of those that you thank you for that. So, let's talk about some strategies and how we can do that because this is the unique reality of HR professionals. um, Emotional labor with minimal emotional processing space. That's a reality. We have to navigate conflict and complex interpersonal dynamics while remaining neutral. That can be a bit challenging, can it? We have to hold on to responsibility for other people's well being. Again, a huge responsibility. And we have to constantly adapt in high stakes situations. And I'm seeing your heads nodding in agreement. So that's really challenging. And a lot of others that are not in our space don't recognize those challenges. Coaching is a well being practice. It's important that we as HR professionals recognize that there is a tool, and that tool is coaching that will help us maintain balance in our lives as HR professionals. Because coaching helps us notice what's happening internally when we ask powerful coaching questions. It changes ownership, takes it off of us, and puts it on our employees. It helps us to respond rather than absorb. It also helps us maintain boundaries without disengaging. In fact, coaching helps us become even more engaged, and individuals will feel that engagement as we ask powerful questions. I have to tell you, I'm so passionate about the power of coaching. I tell everyone the power in communication and relationships is not in what we tell, it's in what we ask. Sarah?
I was actually just clapping.
Oh, I see that. Yay. It is, as an HR professional, you know that well.
Yes.
Coaching is the magic, everyone. It really, truly is. And it helps us stay grounded under pressure. And I have to say, coaching was one of the greatest tools I learned in my career because of the impact that it has on relationships and helping us stay grounded at the same time. It's amazing when you ask powerful questions and people discover for themselves their own ideas, their own answers, their own solutions. So let's talk about self-awareness. It's noticing before reacting. Self-awareness means recognizing emotional triggers as we go through coaching processes, noticing the stress signals in the body, and understanding personal patterns under pressure. And coaching opens up those doors for us. So I'd like you to think about this for a moment. What situations at work most quickly shift your emotional state? And I'd love to hear your reflection in the chat, or please feel free to come off mute and share if you'd like. Anyone have examples? I see there's something coming up in the chat.
Negative conflict.
Negative conflict. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that, Maria?
So when people blame each other and nothing productive gets done, that could be very disconcerting.
Hmm. Absolutely. We feel that and we respond to that. Raise your hand if you can relate to that, Sarah.
Yes. And, I'd also share that I think situations that arrive in the workplace that can shift my emotional state is when individuals, whether it's a member, customer, or employee, responds explosively right off the
Mhm.
bat before really giving weight to different perspectives or what truly happened. So they're closed-minded and just explode. Those situations, thankfully, don't happen often, but they can certainly happen whomever it is that we're interacting with, you know.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we are human as HR professionals. So we feel that stress and we feel that pressure. And this is where coaching really helps us stay grounded and neutral in situations like this so that we're not responding the way they're responding. Was there anything else? Yeah, Sarah, you
I was
you
just
would
going to
say.
say absolutely. Just to your point, we absorb everything around us, but it's on us to remain calm, collected, and even keeled during these situations. But it still carries that weight, which is exactly the purpose of today's webinar.
Hmm. And when we can identify those triggers, then we can plan for it and it will help us to stay grounded and also plan for the specific coaching questions that we might ask to diffuse these situations as well. Was there anything else in the chat, Elena?
Yes, here one comment, shifting deadlines and high urgency situations.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think we can all relate to that one as well. Definitely a trigger, definitely comments and things that come up that we have to deal with and remain neutral. So excellent. The purpose again of this is to identify those so that we can plan accordingly and how to stay neutral and shift our our emotional state. So detachment is caring without carrying. And that's really the key. We have to care. We cannot be effective if we don't. So detachment is not disengagement. It's separating your role from other individuals' emotions. It's holding space without taking responsibility for the outcome. With coaching, it's important that we keep the ownership on them, not on us. And this is where asking powerful questions is really valuable because they will take ownership as we ask those questions. Staying neutral in emotionally charged situations, it involves emotional intelligence and being aware, starts with self-awareness, which is what we're doing today. So another area for reflection, where do you tend to take on emotion that aren't yours to carry? Sarah?
I genuinely care about every single person that I interact with, and I think we all do, but when there's those situations that you just feel completely helpless with, like all the
Mhm.
employees that lost their homes back in Jamaica or that are impacted by other natural disasters or things going on in life, it's hard not to be affected by that, so I do implement strategies to try to prevent myself from, I don't know, carrying that heavy weight to where it starts impacting sleep and things like that. But, I'd be dishonest to say that those things don't impact me sometimes, those really tragic stories.
Yeah, absolutely. It is hard because we are human. So it's giving you some tools to help. But again, we are going to live with some of these challenges that we hear. And I see some things in the chat as well, Elena.
Yes, two comments. One comment regarding sometimes empathy, and another comment when there is loss.
Mm, absolutely. And that's hard in life. It's even harder when we're at work dealing with our employees, where we need to let them know how much we care without actually carrying the burden. So let me share some strategies that hopefully will help. It's protecting your energy, but not avoiding. Avoiding is the worst thing we can do. So it's always creating the healthy boundaries, knowing what we can and cannot do, clarifying what is and isn't your responsibility, things like deadlines. It's really not our responsibility. It's helping them come up with ideas and strategies around that. And again, the powerful coaching questions will always help us in situations like this. Knowing when to pause. I think pausing is, again, one of the most effective tools. People feel uncomfortable with silence. It's very interesting, but the pause is one of the most powerful methods of communication. Just pausing and allowing a person time to reflect and giving them that time, not filling that space. So, knowing when to pause, knowing when to defer, and also knowing when to redirect or critical, and being able to either say not now or say no without using the words no, without feeling guilty. So, it's really important that we know what those boundaries are and that we're comfortable and confident in expressing those boundaries to keep well balanced in ourselves. So here's where we move from reacting to reflecting. When we react, it's automatic, but we all have the ability to control that reaction. We have 6-second built-in pause in our brains so that we can reflect intentionally. When we react, it's emotionally driven. When we reflect, we are grounded. When we react, it is often followed by regret. But when we reflect, we're creating choice. Coaching presence supports well being all around because it's about emotional regulation under pressure. It's about self management in complex situations. And it's remaining curious instead of defensive. So when we have those triggers, if we're in the mindset of curiosity, it'll help us establish questions to ask in a coaching mindset as opposed to responding and feeling like we need to respond, or sometimes even becoming defensive during those difficult situations. So, with that, we can take a moment and try to put it into practice to see what it feels like. So, I want you to think about this, and this is a great thing. We can do this. We have a few of us here, or we can demonstrate this together. Our team can demonstrate this together if no one wants to volunteer. I want you to think about what currently drains your energy most in your HR role, what supports or restores you, and what is one micro action that could increase your well being this week. So, if we wanted to demonstrate what a coaching conversation looks like, we could actually role play and do this. And we do have a minute or two to do it. Would anybody like to volunteer being a coach and a coachee? Sergio, was that your hand up?
Yep.
Do you want to be the coach?
Either one. I'm flexible.
Okay. Can I have another volunteer? Is anybody's hand up? I can't see everyone on my screen.
I'll do it.
That
Oh,
would
Tony, thank you
be
so much. Okay, coach for coachee, Tony.
Oh, I'd love Sergio to be my coach, so I'll be the coachee.
Okay. Sergio, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sergio?
I'm doing well. I'm doing
Good,
well. I am
good.
here
Good to
for
see
you.
you.
I'm
I'm going to
great
interrupt
to
you for
s-
2 minutes.
Yes,
Um,
Oh,
this is quick because basically 3 minutes, if you could, in three
fantastic.
minutes, these three questions. Thanks.
Great. Tony, tell me, what currently drains your energy most in your HR role?
um, maybe too much negativity. When I'm receiving a lot of negative energy,
Hmm.
that's draining.
Where do you find the energy, that negative energy that comes to you to hit you the most?
I would say it's probably from teams that come forward. So if one person in the team is negative, it kind of bleeds in. So um, by the time it reaches me or the time that I um, recognize it, it's it's throughout that team. So it's a very negative energy. And at the time it's brought to me, um, there's so much coming at me that can drain me.
Hmm. And as you approach those situations, Tony, and I can also feel in the energy coming through your voice in how much that's impacting you. So as you then prepare to counter that negativity, what
Mhm.
are some things that you do or can do to build up some positive energy in you so that you can balance that out a little bit?
Yeah, things that build my resilience. It's probably quiet time, or not necessarily meditation. I'm not a meditator, but I would say just pausing for myself. Um, I'll also, like laughter makes me build resilience. So that kind of things that brings me happiness. Walking also clears my head. So those are things that
Mm,
support um, and they restore me so that I'm ready for that um, kind of negative. I'll call it almost a negative. It feels like a negative attack.
mhm.
So I have to kind of release that because it's not personal.
Yeah.
And those are the things that help restore that for me.
Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it too, so that you don't hold on to it after the conversation has ended. Because if not, it starts to weigh down, and that will deplete that energy as well. So as you build up that resilience too, how do you use that resilience to then help you get to that almost problem-solving mode to be able to manage some of that negativity in the team?
Can I cut you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. Give them a round of applause, everybody.
Hard to do in 3 minutes. Tony, you're
I
fabulous.
know because we all know coaching conversations last a whole lot longer than 3 minutes. But the demo gives you an idea of how you can really think about how do you deal with these types of situations and the power of coaching in addressing your well-being. And that last question is what's one micro action? What's one thing? And I think Tony was actually sharing a little bit about that action as Sergio was asking those powerful questions. So I hope that helped, and I hope that gives you some ideas on how we can focus on our well-being as HR professionals. Well done. Um, so during the exercise, I'm hoping that you notice some new insights, emotional awareness. You could actually see a shift in Tony's body language, I think, and common well-being needs in HR. So it's important to understand that well-being is a practice, it's not a program. So this is a question for you to reflect on and think about in your role as an HR professional. What's one small shift that you're willing to experiment with this week? What is one thing you could do differently based on what we shared to protect your well-being? And how can you implement coaching practices, which you're going to learn a whole lot more about when I hand it off to my colleagues that have even more information for you moving forward. So remember that your well-being starts with your self-awareness. So identify your triggers, be aware, and use your coaching practices. So with that, I just stuck a slide up here with my LinkedIn. If anybody wants to connect with me, or you can connect with me, you all know how to connect with each other. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Sarah Staley.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, welcome. In this session, we're going to explore a subtle and powerful shift that's happening in organizations, which is the move from HR as a transactional support function to HR as a true organizational coach and thus organizational partner. We're not here to add more to your workload. In fact, it's literally quite the opposite. Today is about changing how you show up in the conversations that you're already having with leaders, with employees, and with your executive teams, so that those conversations that you're having create ownership, trust, and sustained performance instead of dependence and burnout. What you're going to learn today, and as you continue your coaching journey, is going to be a total game changer for you, your organization, and every single person that you serve. Next slide. Before we dive in, I just want to briefly introduce myself so that you know the lens that I'm bringing into the conversation today. My name is Sarah Staley. I'm a human resources executive and ICF credentialed coach. I hold my ACC through International Coaching Federation, along with my SPHR and SHRM CP. And I've worked for 20 years now in the human resources field across complex, people-centered organizations. Over the past few years, my work has increasingly focused on the intersection of HR, leadership, and coaching. More specifically, how we move HR from being seen as the fixers or the compliance arm of the organization to true partners in human flourishing and leadership development. My core focus areas include human-centered leadership, coaching skills for leaders, emotional intelligence, and building cultures of accountability that actually sustain performance over time. I'm also a fairly newly author, and my work explores how leadership, trauma awareness, and coaching intersect in real organizational life, not just in theory, but in actual practice. And just as a personal note, my one word for the year is wonder. This word sat with me as I like to come up with my one word each year rather than New Year's resolutions. But it sat with me because I believe the most powerful shifts in leadership and in life happen when people slow down, get curious, and allow ourselves to imagine new ways of thinking and new ways of working with people. So that spirit of curiosity and partnership is exactly what we're going to explore together today. So HR must evolve. As you know and have seen, the workforce has changed dramatically in recent years, and it continues to change. People are no longer just staying for paychecks alone. They're staying for growth, meaning, and development. And you're seeing this more and more with the new generations coming up through the workforce. Rather than policies, each organization needs better conversations because people ask, do I feel heard? Do I feel trusted? And am I growing here? And the great advantage that we have as HR professionals is we're uniquely positioned to influence all three, not through authority, but through our presence. Because when HR operates transactionally, we're only managing risk. But when we operate as coaches, we're building capacity. And capacity is what allows organizations to grow without burning people out. So what the future holds for HR is we're no longer just compliance guardians. We are culture architects. We sit at the very center of trust, engagement, leadership, and retention. And what you're going to learn today is that coaching is not a soft skill here. It's the mechanism that allows HR to scale human potential by transforming the impact of the conversations you're already having. And in turn, HR becomes a force for ownership, leadership, and sustainable performance rather than just problem solving. Something I want you to think about today, and as we, move forward through this presentation, is I want you to begin noticing how often and how easily HR conversations can default to explaining, instructing, or advising rather than exploring, because awareness of that is the first coaching skill. Many HR professionals, and I hope I have some HR professionals on today's webinar, fall into what I call the savior trap, and that is feeling responsible for solving everyone's problems. I know it because I've been there, and I still occasionally fall prey to this thinking at times. Just a show of hands, how many of you find yourself at times falling into that feeling of being responsible for everyone else's problems? I see Sergio raised his hand. Yes, and that feeling is heavy. It's heavy for us. It's not something that we should be carrying. As Anne mentioned, it's about caring, not carrying. So when HR becomes the fixers, what happens is employees stop thinking for themselves. Leaders stop owning performance, and HR becomes stuck in firefighting mode instead of leading. And over time, it doesn't just exhaust HR, it actually weakens the organization, and it stunts growth because people become reliant on one person to do the thinking, to do the fixing. Employees will wait to be rescued, and HR, again, remains in that firefight mode. So today, I challenge you to combat that feeling of that savior trap, that feeling of being responsible for fixing everyone else's problems, by remembering that people are naturally intelligent. They're already whole, and to trust that they already hold the answers. They may just need help through a skilled coach to provoke thoughtful insights that bring those answers and clarity to light for them. And that's exactly what coaching is all about. So we're going to start with a simple truth today. Again, like I just shared, HR professionals were trained to be experts, expert fixers, protectors of the organizations, and that work does matter. Compliance, risk, and accountability will always matter. But the modern workforce doesn't grow because policies are perfect. They grow because conversations are powerful. So the real shift in modern HR leadership is not what we do, it's how we show up inside of those conversations. When HR leads from compliance, conversations start to sound like, well, here's the policy. Here's what you need to do, or here's the corrective action. But when we lead from empowerment and from coaching, conversations start to sound like, what's most important for you to understand about this situation? What options are you already considering? What support would help you move you forward? That shift changes everything because empowerment doesn't remove standards. It actually increases ownership. And ownership is what creates that sustainable performance. So the question for us as HR leaders becomes, how do I protect the organization and develop the person at the same time? The answer is very simple. It's coaching. Coaching allows us to hold boundaries while inviting people to think, reflect, and grow. If you leave today with only one mindset shift, let it be this. Every conversation is either building dependence or it's building capacity. And capacity is what allows organizations to thrive without HR having to rescue them over and over again. So it's about adapting the mindset. In order to shift from transactional to transformational in your daily interactions, adopt the mindset that employees are already creative, they're resourceful, whole, and they have the answers. To make this mindset shift, some important strategies or simple strategies you can employ immediately are approaching it with curiosity, approaching conversations with a genuine desire to understand, not to judge, and not to solve. Partnership, viewing that individual as an equal thinking partner in exploration rather than a problem to be solved. Neutrality, another very important one. Step back from that personal agenda or single right answer and allow for multiple perspectives to emerge and explore those perspectives together. And then accountability, believing the employee is fully capable of owning their actions and generating their own path forward, and being that partner with them on holding them to their commitments or exploring if a shift is needed. So as I share these strategies with all of you today, what's coming up for you right now with feel free to unmute yourself or drop a note in the chat. What comes up for you as I just shared those key strategies?
I'm going to say, Sarah, that it's, yeah, coaching competencies. I like that. Ellen wrote that. It really all starts with your mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is what it's all about. And these are simple ways to shift that mindset, to take a more coaching approach to the conversations that we're already having. So now moving into our next slide, I want to cover 5 core coaching skills because these 5 skills are what turn mindset into action. And you don't need to master all of them today. In fact, don't overwhelm yourself with mastering all of them. Start with working on one and getting a little bit better each and every day. But even strengthening one will change the quality of your HR conversations immediately. So let's walk through each with practical language that you can use this week. Active listening is not waiting for your turn to talk. It's listening to understand to what matters, what's underneath, what's getting in the way, instead of thinking about your response. Stay with that person. So you can try something like this. Tell me more about that. What feels important here? What am I not hearing yet? Because when people feel heard, defensiveness drops and insight increases. Just briefly going back to the coaching conversation that happened between Sergio and Tony during Anne's segment, Sergio mentioned that he noticed the energy that Tony was bringing when she was talking about the conflict that she experienced in the workplace. He noticed the shift in the language and the body language. That's a huge part of active listening. It's not just listening to the words, it's listening to what's underneath and what's coming up all around. Next is powerful questioning. Powerful questions don't tell, they invite thinking. So instead of, here's what you should do, try, what options are you already considering? What would success look like in the next 30 days? What's the real challenge for you here? Questions create ownership, advice creates dependence. Hopefully you can see the difference there. Next is emotional intelligence, which is one of the key skills the future of work requires. Emotional intelligence starts with you. It starts with you regulating yourself. If HR is feeling anxious, rushed, or frustrated, the conversation will mirror that. So before you speak, ask, what am I feeling right now? And how might this be shaping my response? Because when you stay grounded, others think more clearly. Feedback and feed forward. Feed forward or feedback looks backward, obviously. Feed forward looks forward. Instead of only saying, here's what went wrong, which is feedback, try, what would you like to do differently next time? What support would help you be successful in the future? This turns correction into development. It's a subtle tweak, but very powerful nonetheless. Holding space. I also have goal setting there, but goal setting is not about assigning tasks. It's about helping people clarify what they want to grow. And holding space means resisting the urge to fix. Silence isn't awkward in coaching. It's very powerful. When HR takes that coaching approach and holds that space, people find their own clarity. You would be surprised if you just hold that space, that silence that may feel uncomfortable at first, what powerful insights will come from that. So what you can do is try, what's your next best step? What are you willing to commit to? So those are just some strategies. I wanted to explain the 5 core skills here and some questions that you can think of asking that tie to each of those to shift, what those conversations may look like. And next, we're going to talk about HR applications and conversations, because that's what's important here, right? It needs to be relevant. If coaching isn't relevant in HR applications, how is this going to benefit you? But the answer is these skills show up everywhere in performance conversations, in conflict conversations, leadership development conversations. Coaching isn't an extra tool, it's the way of working. So when we talk about that first HR application, which is enhancing the performance conversations that you're having, coaching for growth transforms performance discussions into collaborative opportunities for development, fostering engagement, and enhanced employee potential. Annual performance reviews can have a tendency, in my experience, to primarily be a backward-looking process, focusing on ratings and rating justifications. But imagine shifting to a forward-looking, employee-owned conversation, focusing on growth, strength, and those future goals. The secret sauce here is the coaching shift, using those powerful questions that we've been talking about to help employees set their own meaningful goals, focusing conversations on learning from challenges rather than only evaluating outcomes, and transforming managers from judges into coaches who support performance optimization. So that might look like saying, what feels hardest about meeting this goal right now, instead of here's what you need to do to fix it. Or it might look like, what do you think is getting in the way of your best work right now, instead of your performance isn't where it needs to be. Can you see the shift in those different approaches? So the next application that I'd like to touch on is navigating conflict conversations effectively. So from an HR perspective and using a coaching approach, imagine conflict resolution as going from that referee that HR can tend to be to a conflict capacity builder. We can go from stepping in as a mediator or the judge in determining who is right to facilitating dialogue and empowering individuals to resolve their own conflicts, which in turn improves their communication skills and their ability to view conflict from different perspectives. That powerful shift, it happens through coaching by asking questions that help each party understand the other's perspectives and their own contributions to the conflict. And it builds the organization's overall conflict resolution muscle, rather than a process dependent on us and HR for every dispute. So that might look like, what do you want the other person to understand about your experience? Instead of, let me explain what that person meant, because now I'm just kind of taking words out of their mouth and shifting into what I want it to be. Or it might be, what would a constructive outcome look like for you here? Instead of, let's just move past this. Again, very, very powerful tools and strategies you can put in place to make a big difference. Now, enhancing leadership conversations for growth. This may easily be one of my most favorite HR applications personally, reimagining talent and leadership from managing a pipeline to unleashing potential. Effective coaching and leadership conversations fosters impactful growth and enhances team dynamics, and it drives organizational success and engagement. By identifying strengths to leverage individual leadership qualities effectively, recognizing growth opportunities for improvement and skill advancement, to then aligning them with team objectives that translate into high-performing teams. A coaching mindset takes a personalized approach, using coaching to uncover aspirations, build self-awareness, and cultivate leadership at all levels by mapping career paths based on individual strengths and aspirations, and building an internal coaching capability through training managers and coaching skills to create a culture of mentorship. Could you imagine if your leaders began to implement a coaching mindset? Think of the power in the insights that you see in your own coaching relationships, and now multiply that throughout your organization by others adopting those skills. Doing so is incredibly powerful, and it's easy to implement through subtle shifts in approach. So that might look like saying something along the lines of, what kind of leader do you want to be in this situation? Instead of, well, here's how I would handle it. Or saying something along the lines of, what would you do if you were fully confident in this decision? Instead of, here's what I think you should do. So now I want to touch on a coaching framework that I absolutely love. I know I have some coaches on this call, as well as some HR professionals that may be new to coaching or just exploring it for the first time. So there are many different coaching models and frameworks that can be used. You've heard about some in Anne's segment, and you'll hear about another popular framework with Elena. Today, I want to share with you Acera. It's a go-to framework that I use regularly in my coaching conversations. So in the Acera framework, A stands for agree, which refers to the outcome the individual wants from the session or conversation that you're having. It's really important that this starts off on the right foot by being very specific and focused in order for it to be effective. Questions you might ask in the A portion of the framework is, what is the most important thing that you want to get out of today's session? Or what is the goal for your session? Or it might be, if there was one thing that you could walk away with from our session today, what would it be? But the biggest pitfall in a coaching session is not getting to an agreement in the beginning that's specific and narrow enough. C is for comprehend. This is the phase where you work with the individual to identify the obstacles and challenges to achieving that desired outcome. It's the gap between where they are right now and where they want to be. So questions you might ask here is, what scares you the most about this? What shift or change would need to happen in order to move forward? E of the ACERA framework is for explore. Here's where you partner together to identify multiple options for a solution and begin to narrow those options. Exploration is by far the most powerful part of coaching and is where 90% of those aha moments happen. Questions you might ask here are, what are your options? What haven't you considered? What are the possibilities? R is for recap. This is where the client, the individual, or the employee articulates the recap, identifying the most important points and takeaways of the session. Questions that might be asked here include, what have you learned from our session today? What is most important that you need to remember from our conversation? Or how have your eyes been opened by our conversation? And then last but not least, no session is complete without ACT, which is the individual's commitment to a clear course of action. That is, what action are they going to take as a result of the coaching session? A clear commitment is needed here. So questions that might be asked in this phase are, what's the most important action you can take or will take now? What specifically will you commit to between now and our next session? Or how might you apply what you've learned in this session to your actions moving forward? It's a powerful framework, and again, one of my most favorite to use in my coaching conversations. But as with everything, and something we always say in HR is, there is no one size fits all approach. So there's many different frameworks that you'll learn about. Again, you'll learn about at least one more today. And as you continue your coaching journey, you may hear GROW, SCARF, the AOOA framework, PERMA, or more. Okay, today I'm only teaching you ACERA. So moving on and just being cognizant of time here, I do want to do a brief role play where two individuals practice, one being the HR coach and one being the employee, going from telling to coaching. With the coach, your goal is to help the employee gain clarity, where you can only ask open-ended questions, offering no advice, and the employee briefly sharing a real challenge and being open-minded to the coach's options. So I just want to make sure that we have enough time here. And Elena, you think we've got 3 minutes to practice? Can I get a volunteer for someone to be the HR coach and a volunteer to be the employee? Okay, Maria, will you be the coach or the employee?
I'll be the coach.
Perfect. Now I just need an employee. Let's see. Sergio, you want to go again and this time be on the other side of it?
I would love to.
Okay, awesome. So we'll take literally 3 minutes here, and the only rules are no advice, just open-ended questions, reflection, and listening. Okay. So Maria, you start off with a challenge that you're facing, and or I'm sorry, Sergio, you'll start off with a challenge you're facing. Maria, you will coach Sergio.
Okay.
So
Good
I'll
morning,
go.
Sergio. How are you
Hi,
today?
hi, Maria. I'm okay.
Good.
Just okay today.
Oh, just okay. So, what would be the best way for us to spend our time talking today?
I'd love some insights on how to get past some of the constant complaining that I have among my team members.
Constant complaining. What do you think would be a way that you could influence that?
Um, I I'm thinking abundance of positivity. Where I sometimes hesitate is that I don't want it to come across as fake or just shallow. Um, because I do want to hear
Hmm.
their challenges. But it's just, just so negative that it kind of
Mm.
depletes you sometimes.
Hmm. So it sounds like you really want them to feel like they're being heard.
I do. I do.
So if you were them and you had those types of complaints, what might you like somebody to ask you?
How can we help? What are we, or identify what we're missing? What are we not? What are we not
Hmm.
asking? Might be one
Hmm.
to think about.
Hmm.
Um,
So it sounds like you want to have a conversation beginning with how can you help the situation? Is that right?
I would love to, and get some insights on things that we
Mm-hmm.
can do
Mm-hmm.
differently.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you already have some insight into your team.
Um, I think there's some suspicion that I have as to where it's coming from. Their organizational changes.
Ah.
People are
Okay,
struggling.
I'm gonna
Um,
Mm.
pause.
yeah, yeah. I figured it's
I know
getting
that
to the
was
3 minutes.
very short, but hey, let's give them a round of applause. You guys did amazing. Maria, great job on those open-ended questions. Sergio, you were a wonderful employee. I could tell that you were really open to the questions that Maria was asking you. That was excellent. That was excellent. So, um, moving on to the next slide. Think to yourself, what did you notice? And as you reflect, if you coach this way more consistently, what would change in your workload and in your organization? So, and for the employee, think to yourself, how did it feel to be asked questions versus being given a solution? And for the coach, what was challenging about not giving advice? What did you notice? I noticed that ownership increased with the employee. I noticed energy shifted, insights deepened, and solutions expanded because it felt more like a partnership between the conversation. And so moving on to our next slide, first steps. Your first step on the coaching path may not be linear, but it could look something like assessing your next one-to-one to clarify colleague and employee needs. It might look like practicing one skill that you learned here today, such as focusing on one more powerful open-ended question instead of providing immediate answers. It might look like introducing a concept, maybe sharing from fixing to building capacity idea with your HR team, or discuss what that looks like in practice. Or maybe it's exploring formal training through a reputable ICF accredited coach training program for yourself and or your team. And now as I wrap up my session today, I want to invite you to connect with me. The journey to becoming an organizational coach begins with a single powerful question. What will be yours? It's been my pleasure engaging with all of you on a topic that I truly am extremely passionate about. I hope you found this session helpful and in challenging you in a new way of thinking. And if you'd like to continue the conversation or just stay connected in general, please use the QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. And further, if you're interested in checking out my recent release on the power of human-centered leadership, please feel free to check it out on Amazon. It was designed as a practical read with information you can immediately implement to elevate your leadership presence. As I mentioned in the beginning of this, my work over these last couple of years has increasingly become more focused on coaching and human-centered leadership specifically. And I just thank you all for sharing your time and your day with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And we are moving to the part of for the last third part, and our third part of this presentation will be related to the career development for HR through the lens of coaching. And I would like to introduce myself. I'm executive business and career coach. Also, more than 15 years I'm working as HR professional. Also, more than 15 years I have experience as associate professor at the university. I'm executive MBA, PhD, and professional certified coach, PCC, and advanced certified team coach, ECTC. And today I would like to start and not start. I guess I will continue this vibe that Anne and Sarah bring to this webinar. This reflection, these coaching, powerful coaching questions. Let's think that most HR careers don't stall because of lack of opportunity. They stall because the person outgrows the way they make meaning. Just try to think and reflect about this. And when we always thinking about our career development, we are often thinking about this ladder visualization. What will be my next role? Okay, right now I'm junior recruiter. Then I will be a middle recruiter. Then I wish to be a human resource, maybe HR generalist, and so on and so on. And then when you start reflecting not about the roles, but when you start thinking about your career as ecosystem, as HR ecosystem. In this HR ecosystem, you will see that your roles coexist. They often, really often overlap, and value is created through the relationship. You can analyze your work at your company in one place or another place, and you will understand that relationship, this is the key. And also important to review your career path through the coaching lens. Try to ask, instead of asking question, what is my next role? Ask another question. Where do I create energy, movement, and growth in the system, in this ecosystem? Which environments amplify my impact? And then when you think not about next role, next career, or next path, variety of these passes, try to think from position seeking to value positioning, where you can grow. And when we are talking about HR ecosystem, career ecosystem, we need to imagine, this is short like imagination, a presentation about this ecosystem. In the center should be always you. As Anne started, our well-being, I'm as identity, I'm as human first of all, and then my professional identity. Then you can see different these facets that Sarah described right now. This is purpose, contribution zone, my capacities, my competences, my relationship at work, and context, where I'm working, in which type of organization I'm working, what I can bring to this organization. And when you think from this perspective, then you can see differently your next role. So let's start from the core, from the center. Who I am, my identity, my professional identity. And when you think about this professional identity, not like who I am and my role. I'm vice president of HR. I'm learning and development specialist. No, try to explain this like for 5 years old kid. Who I am, what I'm doing. And often, when you start to explain this 5 years old kid who I am and what I'm doing, you will understand that actually I'm not only one role. I'm caring about different like portfolio roles. Sometimes I'm advisor, I'm mediator, I'm architect of systems, definitely 100% I'm holder of ethics and carrier of culture in my organization. And from this perspective, try to think about your career path and ask and reflect about this question. Which version of me does the organization already use? Maybe you are mainly advisor, or maybe you are architect of systems, organizational development specialist. And then ask, and which one is waiting for to be invited? Maybe you need to be more mediator, or maybe your organization already is ready for coach. Then when you're thinking about, and we today, Sarah presented about competences, meta competences. So we are thinking about competences as something that will help us to grow and go to the next role. So if I will pass this certification, this course, this, I will get this role. And sometimes when we start deeply analyze and reflecting about our competences, we understand that they are static. We learn, we take more knowledge, but what is really development? It's our capacity. It's way how we are thinking. Because to be, you heard million times that to be on the leadership role, you have to have different mindset. And this, our capacity, how we think, how we adapt, how we working with a stressful situation, how we caring about ourselves, how we caring about our well-being first of all, and then about well-being in our organization. So this understanding that we need to develop first of all and make focus on our capacities help us to holding this paradox where from one side we are caring and HR is always the main role like protector, from one side people and business and performance, people and business always. And when you start to think differently through this lens, when you start changing through the coaching your mindset and way of thinking, that you then understand that career growth in HR often still not you skill gaps, because you can get all courses and all certifications, but due to capacity of ceiling. When you need really, you stuck and you need to go to the next level of thinking. Coaching works in the level where training cannot. And when we start go deep about this difference between coach, about competences and capacities, everyone is familiar with traditional HR competency models. For example, CIPD, SHRM, and so on. Then you know about leadership competency frameworks. There are a lot of difference. But what coaching brings, this domain that develop meta competences, self-awareness. It's about this self-awareness already, Anne mentioned about this. Reflexive capacity, and Sarah and Anne mentioned about this, and intentional actions. And evidence from leadership development researchers indicates that coaching accelerates the transition from functional expertise to leadership effectiveness by integrated who I am with what I do. Who I am and what I do. And also, when you start thinking from a different perspective, what will be my next step, what my next role, how I can develop my career. Start thinking not from traditional this perspective, when we need to choose one path and go on this career ladder on this path, or if you make some mistakes, this damage your career. Try to think differently. Okay, let's see what type of identities do I have in my area? For example, if I have personally, I have three different identities. I have career in anthropology, in coaching, in human resource. How I can bring the best, these strengths from anthropology, from human resource, and from coaching, how I can create something new. Try to test roles, mindset, and important to change narratives. When you change the roles or changing your new professional identity, try to change narrative and learn faster than system change. For example, if you start to thinking, what type of experiments can I do? Try, for example, in your organization, try to facilitate strategy conversation without, for example, formal organizational development authority. For in your organization, you can try to do this. This is small experiment that give you chance to understand what type of thinking do I have? Not about what type of skills do I need, but also how changing my thinking. And then temporarily adopting a business language instead of HR language. This is also really helpful. And then when we thinking about our purpose for what I'm doing and how we formulate, my purpose is to la la la. This is super traditional sentence. But try to think differently. What is my current pattern of contribution? How I'm working right now? And then how I can, for example, create this value under pressure, because everyone today mentioned that work of HR is not easy and energy consuming, and what you are doing differently, what other consistently come to you for, and then ask big question for yourself. Across all these roles, identities, professional identities, I mean, and years, where does my impact repeat? This pattern, even when my title changes. So then you will understand this deep essence. Okay, I started like recruiter, but I'm doing this differently, and but I trying to bring this to my profession. And my work. Then I was working as HR manager, then HR generalist, then and so on, and try to answer for this question. And the most important when we're thinking about career development, we trying to thinking again about changing roles from HRBP to talent management or even coaching roles. But all these roles, they need not changing only type of capacity, but mindset shift. It's more deeper level of capacity change. For example, if you're thinking about, yes, I'm in my company problem solver, and try to think what I would, how I would like to change my mindset. I don't want to be this fireman or firewoman. I wish to be sense maker. I wish to bring something, this awareness. You saw through these small demo presentation, coaching presentations. So you see that it's actually possible. And then from expert to facilitator inside, from owner of answers to holder questions. And coaching helps you rewrite your professional narrative. When you change in roles and change in mindset, you need to change your professional narrative, how you describe who are you and your identity, and speak differently about your value. So it's important that you be perceived differently without changing your essence. Today you learn about one interesting framework from coaching, and I would like to introduce you with another coaching framework. Grow model is famous. Grow to pay attention. That important to ask yourself important questions through this coaching model. Goals. G, it means goals. What you like to achieve. Then try to check your reality. What is the current situation in your career landscape? Then options. What could you do to achieve your goals? And then will, what you will do. And if we think through this coaching model to career planning and career development, we can see that HR professionals need really career governance, not career planning. And how we can achieve this? First of all, it should be regular reflection cycles or journaling, for example, decision principles, what I say yes or no, energy audit, you already heard about this, and alignment check between identity and role demands, career experiments, and hypothesis testing that I mentioned before, and goal alignment through this model. And then I would like to encourage you that you will also think, make pause and think when you view your HR career as a source of awareness, what does it invite you to release and what does invite you to step into? You can share in the chat if you wish, or we can move forward and then we will discuss. I left a few minutes for open discussion after presentation. And also I would like to, at the end of presentation, introduce you with a small reflective exercise, 5 key questions. When you have this internal voice, internal thinking about your career development, when you think about your career even today, notice it's not a ladder or plan, but a system or ecosystem of experiences, relationships, and patterns. And ask first question, where is your HR work do you feel most alive and engaged? Then you will pick this in your mapping, in your ecosystem. Then where do you feel competent but drained? Then where does your role ask you to hold tension or ambiguity? What feels unfinished or emerging? And what do you think is asking for development, not promotion? Thank you so much